Welcome. So I'm currently the rank 1 Lich with the Chaos Stealth setup, and I think that makes me qualified for make a leveling guide. The core skills that are using are Essence Drain and Contagion. They're both Chaos Stealth skills that were buffed in 0.2. And basically Chaos Stealth has two portions, a hit portion, which was actually nerfed a little bit, and a damage over time portion is the part we are going to scale. And the first few 4 gems that I suggest are Zenith and with Affliction. If you have quite a bit of damage, I would use Chain, and that's gonna be a lot of quality of life. Basically it's gonna chain twice now, and the damage penalty only affects the hit part, which we don't really care about. Zenith requires you to have 90% of your maximum mana, above 90% of maximum mana, but you get 30% more damage. It used to be so that you could use Control Destruction, but Control Destruction now only gives hit damage. We're using Zenith now and Swift Affliction. You have very good damage. You would use Chain on the third socket, and that's gonna be very good for clear because it's gonna chain to 2 people. And then when you have your first Lesser Duelist, I would use on Essence Drain, because this is your main damaging and clear skill. And I would consider casting or chain, depending on how much damage you have. And the way you basically use the skill is, if your damage is not very high and the monsters don't almost die instantly when you Essence Drain, you would first Essence Drain the monster and then cast Contagion. What will happen is that the Contagion will basically out-target the monster is affected by the Essence Drain and then proliferate the Essence Drain debuff. So for Contagion, depending on how you play Essence Drain and Contagion, if you cast first, you can basically not use Unleash, and then I would basically just use Magnified effect. But if you need to use Contagion first because your Essence Drain has too much damage, I would use Unleash, and basically with Unleash you will gain seal charges, and for each seal charge your Contagion will repeat, so you will cast it 3 times if you have your 2 charges. And that's basically gonna make it easier to hit a target affected by Contagion with Essence Drain. And that's really huge quality of life, especially once you have Chain support. Then it's gonna be pretty easy to hit a target affected by Contagion. And I also have Magnified effect, because that will increase the spread radius, and it's gonna be very good for clear. And later on you can also use Derange. That one is a tier 3 support, but it's not absolutely necessary. And in my case it only gives me 16% more damage, because I only have 206 internet intelligence right now. Your first spirit gem is gonna be Withering Presence. And this was buffed recently, so they increased the wither duration that it inflicts. And also the interval is now the interval in where they wither the enemy is now much shorter. So you support this with persistence, so that the wither duration has a longer duration. And you can also use, later on, if you want, you can use Mysticism. While you're on full energy shield, you gain increased spell damage in Chaos Mastery, but this is not very important. And for the second spirit gem, I use Convalescence, and basically it's, PoE 1, it's like Val Discipline. It's basically a buff. You activate this, and while it's active, basically you start energy shield and it cannot be interrupted for the buff duration. In my case, apparently it's 3.8 seconds. I think it's actually longer for me because it's 7.22 seconds because of all of skill effect duration on my tree, and you can have. I actually don't need this anymore because I have I don't need cannibalism because of eternal life at the moment. You can support this with whatever you want, clarity, and once you have 2 strength nodes, I usually pick them right at the start. So I path over here, and then go over here, here, and then I path 2 strength nodes. And that is to allow me to get a level 3 shield charge, which I get the level 3 skill gem from Lachlan usually. And that's gonna be my mobility skill. And once you have a tier 2 support, you can support it with Ingenuity to increase the cooldown recovery rate. And basically what you do with this is, once you have it, put this on the second weapon set, and put every other spell that you're using on the first weapon set, so that you won't cast your spells on the first weapon set where you basically have your damage, basically your wands. And for your second weapon set, you have your shield, use your shield charge. And if you want, you can go for a block chance shield. That's gonna help while you're shield charging. And you can also use, if you want, you can also use Unbreakable for increased stun threshold while using this skill. So I would say this build, apparently they nerfed the monster HP in the campaign. I don't know what they did previously. Apparently the monsters were too strong and there were complaints. So I had some trouble in Act 2, at the end of Act 2. But once you have level 31, you're very strong, and I would recommend fighting Ra. Well, I guess in the now they have, let me take out the patch notes. Now they apparently have nerfed the HP, so you probably don't need to do this anymore, but previously I would have basically only fought Ra. I would recommend to fight Ra at level 31, but I don't think that's necessary anymore because of the very strong monster, very high monster HP, but they nerfed that. So at 31, you're gonna get access to two good heal skills, the Dark Effigy and the Despair. Despair is basically a curse that reduces the enemy's resistance. And Dark Effigy will attack basically a monster that is affected by chaos damage. And you want to affect the... It's basically... I use it mostly for single target, Dark Effigy. And you want to affect your single target with 2 debuffs, basically Contagion and Contagion and Essence Drain, so that the Vial of Fusion will fire multiple projectiles at enemies. And this is fairly strong. I think they buffed this. So the support gems for Dark Effigy, I have Overabundance, Extraction, and Arcane Tempo. And if you don't have Extraction, because it's a tier 3 support, you can do Control Destruction instead. And I would only click the Overabundance once you have the... So first of all, you need the skill factoration here and here. And then once you have this node, these nodes, I would get only then I would get Overabundance, because Overabundance has the lines support the skills, has 50% less skill factoration. And for your curse, you're obviously going to use Despair with Heightened Curse, and they buffed recently the Decaying Hex. It used to be 60% of intelligence, now it's 100%, and you can target this with Inspiration if you want. I get asked quite often what nodes I take first. So for most people, I probably would recommend Soulless Form and Eternal Life first. And this is going to be your defense. This is basically damage reduction. Your life cannot change while you have Energy Shield, because you have this node. 5% of damage taken by passes energy shield, and also the line 10% of damage taken by passes energy shield on the Soulless form, and that will make it so, and the Eternal Life will make it so that you do not lose energy life while you have energy shield. And so I would go these nodes first, and then this. But if you have a lot of energy shield and you're quite good at playing around your energy shield and your recharge, you can go Eldritch Empowerment second. And the reason why you don't go Eldritch Empowerment first, even though it gives 30% more damage, is that because of the line, non-challenging spells cost an additional 3% of maximum energy shield. And that will make it so that if you don't have energy shield, you cannot cast your skills. This is why it's quite clunky to use if you don't have any good energy shield, and very fast energy shield start, and basically faster start of energy shield recharge. I have a lot of nodes invested because of Eldritch Empowerment. So yeah, I would go these first, and then I would go this. I initially tried this out, but then you constantly have to use Profane Ritual, so I wouldn't recommend this. And some people ask me why I don't go this. Basically, I don't go this because of the Contagion being basically already proliferating the divas to enemies, so you don't really need explosions. And yeah, this is for the Ascendancy choice. So for leveling, I would start here with these nodes, path over here, and go the increased chaos damage nodes. And then if you play a shield charge, you want to get 2 strength nodes here. So you can use a level 3 shield charge. You need 17 strength in total. And then I would go over here, path to these nodes, go down to this, and get the increased scales damage and skill effect duration. And then you go to top side. You can either go left and click these nodes, the increased chaos damage. And if you have quite a high base energy shield and you don't really need damage, you can go for these energy shield nodes. And if you have high energy shields, you can also click the stun threshold equal to % of your maximum life if you're struggling with getting stunned a lot. And then I would start pathing towards the top side. Don't click this and get these nodes. Do the dark entries, which will give you plus the level of all kill skills. And then you can get the low start, but increase maximum energy shields. And I would click this for the dark effigy. And then you can socket in your Overabundance. And if you have Eldritch Empowerment, I would click the faster start of energy shield recharge. But as long as you don't have it, I wouldn't invest too many nodes into this. And then you can go to the Wither way, and you can click all these chaos damage nodes if you want. And in maps, I would basically get a little bit of faster start of energy shield recharge. And I would also get freeze threshold, those reduced effect of chill, because they changed how they changed how frequently the monsters chill, freeze, and ignite and shock you. So I would recommend getting some freeze threshold. And you can also get more stun threshold if you want. And you can also and then later on you can get if you have, usually I start speccing into energy shield nodes, a lot of energy shield nodes in like beginning of the cruel acts. You can click those nodes whenever you want, and you can connect it over here with cast speed. You don't really need mana regeneration rates as long as you have Soulless form. For your skill rotation, as previously mentioned, depending on how much damage you have, if your Essence Drain is not a lot of damage, you can cast Essence Drain first and then use Contagion. And that will make it so that the Contagion targets the enemy that is affected by Essence Drain. But if your Essence Drain already has a lot of damage, it doesn't really matter. It actually you want to cast Essence Drain first and then use Contagion. You want to use Contagion first and then cast Essence Drain. And for single target, what you're basically gonna do is you want to first put up your totems before the fight starts. There's usually roleplay, obviously, so you put up your totems. Then you hit the target with Essence Drain, Contagion. And because it has 2 divas, these totems are gonna shoot more frequently. And you then can cast your curse. It's basically your boss rotation. And for my gear, basically, how do you gear during the campaign? So I still only have an item level 21, and I basically use this for the entire campaign. And you want to basically check for the vendor. Every time you level up, the vendor will refresh a part of his inventory. And you want to check for +2 spell skills or +2 chaos spell skills. And then the second modifier you're looking for is increased chaos damage and increased spell damage. And fast speed is also good. It's gonna be a lot of quality of life, so you can go for that too. But the number one stat I'm looking for is basically +2 spell skills, and this modifier can roll on the wand, and it can also roll on the focus. I got unlucky, so I don't have this on my focus yet. And if you're very lucky, you can get it on your amulet. So I would always look for these +2 skills. For every, basically, if you don't have +2 skills, I would always look at the vendor until you have it. And this is basically going to be your source of damage. What you can also do to increase your damage is, look if I still have it. I don't. You can, if you have access Lesser Jewelers that you don't really need, and you have access Val Orbs, what you can do is you engrave another Essence Drain, basically, and you use your Lesser Jewelers on the Essence Drain, and then use a Val Orb. And there's a chance that you can get another socket. That is the best case scenario. Then you have basically your 4 support gem sockets. I got mine through a Greater Jewelers at the moment. But what's a more likely scenario is that it can get +1 to level, which is gonna be pretty good for your damage. This is another way to get more damage in the later parts of the campaign and the early mapping. And for your defense, basically for your other gear, you just want energy shield and you want to cap your resistances, ideally in maps. I always do the elemental offering in the buried shrines, Act 2 or Act 2 Cruel. And I usually pick the Tobas ring because the Act 2 and the Act 3 boss deal lightning damage. I guess you can go for the Ruby or the Gold ring too, but I would definitely look for that ring as long as you don't have an elemental resistance ring. And of course you can always check the vendor also for the resistance here. The same rule, basically every time you level up, you will refresh a part of his inventory. You're just looking for basically resistances, energy shield, and on your boots you want movement speed to be faster in the campaign. And to basically cap your resistances, they have in this patch they have doubled the drop rate of runes. So you also want to look at the vendor for items with sockets, and you also want to look for items with quality. Actually, not the martial weapons. We don't really look at martial weapons, but at armor with quality. Basically, you type this. And then it will highlight any items you have with quality. And then you can add also different keywords, for example, like this. You want to look at energy shield. and gonna look at, basically you get items with sockets if they're cheap, and then you go to the salvage bench and salvage them to get, if you have items with one socket, it for example gives you one artificial shard, and these will combine. If you have 10 artificial shards, it will combine into an artificious orb, and that lets you add a socket to your item, and into the socket you can add runes, and I would recommend adding elemental resistance runes to cap your resistances in the campaign, and then in mapping especially. And that's going to be an important part of adding better defenses. And if you have really good resistances, I guess you can use instead Iron Rune to increase the energy shield value on your gear pieces. But I mostly have resistance runes. And that was it. Thank you for watching.